So I've started the recording, and I hope you guys have noticed that in the last few days I had uploaded some lectures, last even couple of weeks, lectures on the use of condition variables and what are the common bugs when arise when you do multi-threaded or concurrent programming, and some lectures on file system, how a simple file system can be implemented, a very simple toy file system, okay, how you can store data about different files and directories on a hard disk, okay. And in addition to that, there was chapter on IO devices, etc. also. So I hope you guys have been watching those videos, and if you guys have any questions related to those videos, you guys can ask them here in this synchronous session. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so have you guys got any questions regarding whatever topics have been uploaded in video lectures, or if you guys have studied some chapters in the book, do you guys have any questions?
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Sir, when we declare a mutex or conditional variable, how do we initialize them?
When you use a mutex or condition variable, how do you initialize them?
Sir, there are two options. Number one is like you can simply equate them to pthread mutex initializer. That is that right?
Yes, and that is like the recommended option. What's the other option?
So there was a function for initialization.
Do you remember where did you see that function?
I guess it wasn't on a slide, but on the internet I found it.
Okay, so then I don't know about that function, but the pthread library basically provides you with these macros. Okay, so these capitalized text that you, I mean, just cited, that ptext underscore mutex underscore initialize, etc. So these are macros, and these macros behind the scenes, they can be functions or they can be some constants or whatever. And the idea is that you do not have to worry about how they have been implemented behind the scenes. Okay. So the library basically guarantees you that behind the scenes, all the work is okay. You just use this macro, and this will initialize your conditional variable or lock or mutex. Okay, so you just equate when you create a a mutex or a condition variable. During that creation time, you just equate it to this appropriate macro. Okay, and it will initialize your variable. Is it okay, the answer?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got any question? Well, we can't proceed like this if you guys don't ask any questions. Then this interactive session will again like become a lecture one-way delivery. So no questions at all?
No, sir.
Okay, so if that is the case, then I guess this is going to be another lecture instead of an interactive session. So let me share this document with you. Okay, so can you guys see this PDF?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this for this chapter I don't have slides, so we'll directly study it from the chapter of the book. Okay, so this is the PDF for that chapter of the book, and it's chapter number 38. It's after the chapter on I/O devices and the chapter on hard disks. This is chapter number 38 on RAIDs. Okay, so RAID is a technology that is used in different storage systems. We will see what is RAID, what is it used for, and how does it work internally. Okay, so we'll have a rough idea of how a RAID works after we have finished this chapter. So let us start. So RAID is an acronym that stands for redundant arrays of inexpensive disks. Okay, so redundant, as you know, means something that is repeated. Okay, and array is like just a set of something, and inexpensive disks basically refers to hard disks which are very inexpensive to manufacture compared to other technologies like SSDs or RAMs or processors, etc. Okay, so hard disks are inexpensive to manufacture compared to all these other technologies. Since they are inexpensive to manufacture, they're cheap, so we can basically use multiple hard disks or repeated or redundant hard disks to store information in such a way that it does not get corrupted. Okay, so we will make our storage system more robust against errors and corruptions using extra hard disks. Okay, and we can afford to have extra hard disks because hard disks are much cheaper compared to other devices. Okay, so this is a technology that relies on the cheapness or inexpensiveness of hard disks, and it basically builds such systems that your information, it can stand against errors. Okay, so it can be robust against some errors or some corruptions. So this is the general definition, and we'll see how it is implemented in detail here. Okay, so RAIDs basically, when you deploy multiple hard disks, you can make your system more robust in terms of, first of all, performance. You can improve the performance of your system, and here by performance we means the speed at which you can transfer data between the hard disk and the RAM or the processor. Okay, so performance is of the hard disk is measured in terms of how much speed it can give you when transferring data from the hard disk to the system or vice versa. So RAID will improve our system in terms of performance. And secondly, when we are using multiple hard disks, so of course more hard disks mean more capacity. So we will basically improve our system in terms of capacity. Capacity here refers to how much data you can store on that system. Okay, so more hard disks mean you have more space to store data, so your capacity of the system also increases. And thirdly, and the most important feature where basically RAIDs are used is that using those extra hard disks, we can make our system more reliable. Okay, we can increase the reliability of the system. So reliability is what we just described, that our system becomes more robust or more resistant to data corruption and data errors. Okay, so we'll see different kinds of arrangements in which we can use those extra hard disks so that our system can improve in terms of performance, capacity, or reliability. Okay, and all this is achieved by this redundancy of disk, like we use extra hard disks to achieve these goals. So okay, so all this should be transparent to the system, because when you build the system and you attach it and you build a RAID and you attach it to a computing system, the computing system does not have to worry about the details of how a RAID is implemented. Okay, the computing system just views it as a storage device. So whether it is one hard disk or multiple hard disks, the computing system should not have to worry about the internal mechanism in which through which data is stored on that system, whether in a reliable way or unreliable way. The computing system just treats it as a storage device and sends and receives data to this device. Now this device, as I said, could be a simple one hard disk or an array of hard disks implementing RAID. Okay, for the computing system, this implementation is totally transparent. Okay, you can replace a hard disk with a RAID or a RAID with a hard disk, and the computing system will not know, and it should not know. So, okay, so let's study how RAIDs are implemented internally. So RAIDs basically implemented since we have extra hard disks. So one way we can make our system reliable or robust is that we can mirror our data. Okay, we can store extra copies of our data. Okay, so let's say if I had one hard disk and I add another hard disk to that system, then I can make a copy of all my data on the second hard disk. Okay, so internally this RAID system will have two copies of my data. So if one copy gets corrupted, then I will have the second copy which is still intact. Okay, so this simple copying of all the data, it makes my system or storage robust against at least some errors. Okay, so this is the basic idea of reliability in RAID, that instead of storing one copy of data, we store multiple copies of data. Okay, so this way our system, it can basically resist against some corruption errors, because if data is corrupted in one copy, then the second copy is still intact, and we can use the second copy and also restore the corrupted copy from that copy which is intact. So this is a very simple implementation, but it can be like more complicated in the way in which you can detect errors and recover from errors. We'll see a few simple strategies here in this system. So since we are discussing data corruption and data errors, so we need to talk about things, we need to have some fault model or some terminology through which we can talk about data corruption or errors in data. Okay, so here in this system, when discussing RAIDs, we will use a very simple fault model, and we will assume that whenever our data is corrupted or whenever our like hard disk, one of the hard disks malfunctions, then the whole hard disk basically becomes unusable. Okay, we are not talking about or we will not discuss about that a portion of the hard disk has been corrupted and the rest of the hard disk is still intact, and we can use that rest of the hard disk for useful purposes. These are final level details, and these are like handled inside the hard disk. We are talking about a system which is outside the hard disk and which is combining multiple hard disks. So for us, the fault model will be relatively simpler, and we will say that either a hard disk is fine, 100% working, or a hard disk has malfunctioned or it has error. In that case, we will simply assume that the faulted hard disk has become 100% unoperational. Okay, it is not working at all. Okay, so this is this phase stop model, which basically says that hard disk can be in two states: working or failed. Okay, so this will be the model that we will be discussing in our discussions, and we'll see or take different scenarios in which we have multiple hard disks and suddenly one or more of those hard disks, they fail or they stop working. Okay, 100% at all. So we'll see what effect this can have on our system and how much reliability our system will show in the face of such failures. So as we discussed earlier that we will be evaluating our system along three axes. One was this performance. Performance was like the speed at which your RAID system can transfer data from the hard disk to the RAM or vice versa. So this is one axis. The second axis is capacity. So capacity again, since our we are like adding extra hard disk, so we expect the capacity of our system to grow. Okay, so if I had one hard disk before and now I have two hard disks, and let's say that each hard disk is of 1 terabyte, then previously I could store 1 terabyte of data, and now I expect to store 2 terabytes of data because my I have added an extra hard disk and my capacity has increased. Okay. So, and the third axis will be reliability. Reliability, as I just mentioned, is tolerance to failure or resistance to failures or data corruption. Okay. And in our case, we'll see that if we have a number of hard disks in our RAID system, then our system, it can afford the failure of how many hard disks. How many hard disks can fail and our system can still function properly. Okay, so this will be like the reliability of our system, RAID system, and or we can also call it tolerance to failure. Okay, so these are the three axes: performance, capacity, and reliability, against which we will measure our different RAID implementations. So here in capacity, normally if we have like n hard disks and each hard disk has B blocks of capacity, it can store data in B blocks, then using one hard disk is B blocks, then using n hard disks of B blocks, we should expect our capacity to become n-fold or increase n times. Okay, so the total capacity of our system would be n multiplied by B blocks. Okay. So this is the total capacity of the system, but in our RAID system, will we be able to use the maximum capacity or not? Okay, so that depends on how we are storing our data in our RAID system. Okay, and what is our like principal target or most prioritized goal? Okay, we have these three axes. Which of them we will be preferring more than the others? Okay, so in capacity, let's say we have n hard disk of B blocks, the total capacity is n multiplied by B blocks. But if our main goal is to increase reliability, then let's say we use this technique of mirroring. Okay, mirroring, as I just said, is like copying of our data. Okay, so we will be storing 2 copies of our data in this RAID system. Okay, so if we are using 2 copies of this data in our RAID system, then our useful capacity or effective capacity will be halved. Okay, because whatever data we want to store, we will have to store 2 copies of that data. Okay, and if we are storing 2 copies of everything, then instead of having n multiplied by B capacity, we can store only n multiplied by B divided by 2 blocks of data, okay, because we will have to store 2 copies of every data. Okay, so our effective capacity would be halved. Okay, so this is like the effect which we'll have on these different axes if we base our implementation prioritizing one or more of these different axes or different goals. So let us see how we can implement a RAID and what different different implementations of RAID, how do they perform on all these axes. So RAID systems basically are classified into different levels, and we'll see what is the difference between levels. So the first level is RAID level 0. Okay. So RAID level 0 is called striping, and striping basically refers to the fact that we store our data in multiple stripes. Okay. So let's say we have a disk, an RAID array of 4 disks. Okay, so we have like these 4 disks which are in our system, and what we are going to do is that we are going to store our data. Let's say this is our data from 0 to 15, and we are going to store our data striped across different hard disks. Okay, so we are going to spread our data in these stripes, and let's say we'll store block 0 here on first disk, block 1 on second disk, block 2 on third disk, block 3 on 4 disks, disk 4, and similarly block 4 will again be stored on disk 0, and 5, 6, 7 again they will be spread across different hard disks, and similarly we spread our data like this across different hard disks in these stripes. Okay, so this is like one row, we're calling it one stripe. Okay. So if we spread our data like this, striped across different hard disks, and this is like a system which is combining 4 hard disks, and we connect it to a computing system. So what do you think will be its performance? Oh, sorry, let's call it, no, performance is an excess, so let's don't call it performance. What will be its how should we say it? Or how would it measure on all those 3 axes? The axis of capacity, reliability, and performance. So if we have, instead of one hard disk, if we have like used 4 hard disks here, and we have striped our data like this on different hard disks, do you guys think this arrangement has increased the capacity of our system? On the capacity axis, are we any better compared to one hard disk?
Yes.
How?
Since now we have 4 disks instead of 1, so
So our capacity has increased by how much?
4 times.
Very good, 4 times. So we can store 4 times more data in this system compared to one hard disk. Okay, good. And what about performance? Will the performance, the data transfer rate, will be any better in this system compared to a system which has only one hard disk? Let's say we were going to transfer 4 blocks from hard disk to the RAM. So
It'll
will
be
this, yes, go ahead.
performance will be less efficient, I think. It'll be less efficient. Since it
Why?
will be easier to get data from one disk than from 4 disks.
Okay, so why do you say
So,
it will be easier to get data from one disk compared to
because
4 disks?
it'll be stored in sectors near to each other, I guess, if we store the data in one disk. It'll be
Okay,
most
good.
probably likely to be stored next to each other, so it'll be easier to get access it.
Okay, good, good. And let's say, uh, okay, let's take it like this. We wanted to read data from 4 consecutive blocks, like you just said. Okay, so 4
Alright.
consecutive blocks will be stored next to each other in the sectors on same hard disk.
Alright.
What if we wanted to read data from 4 different blocks? Let's say we wanted to read data from block 4, block 13, block 2 and block 11. How will be the performance of one hard disk compared to this system of 4 hard disks?
I think one hard disk will still work better.
And why do you say so?
Because in the other case we have to access 4 different hard disks, so that might take more time, and we are
Oh,
not sure where the current pointer of that hard disk is, so it might take more time with 4 hard disks, I think.
okay, it will take more time on 4 hard disks if you do it sequentially. What if, since these hard disks are like separate from each other and they are connected to the same device, what if the system can access these hard disks in parallel?
Then it'll be faster.
Yes, then it will be faster. Okay, good. So this is the idea behind having RAID, that since our data is striped like this across different hard disks, and if we are reading from blocks which are on different hard disks, then those reads can be done in parallel. Okay, if those blocks were on the same hard disk, then we will have to do it sequentially. First read one block and then move our hard disk to take our head to the next block and read the second block. Okay, on one hard disk it would have been sequential, but here in like a RAID system, if those blocks are available on different hard disks, then what we can do is we can read those blocks in parallel. Okay, so like if we're reading from 4 hard disks, then all the like the initial setup of the head rotation and seek time, etc., for all these 4 hard disks, it happens in parallel, and they basically cover each other's latency, and then when they start reading, all the 4 blocks, they are read in parallel. Okay, so here we have the advantage of parallelism, which was not available in a single hard disk. Okay, so arranged like this system will be better in most cases compared to a single hard disk if we read data in parallel. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this system is better on the performance axis also. What about
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
When we are using multiple disks, it is always implied that the disk read will be in parallel.
that depends on the system, but it for RAID systems, they are specially made to improve the performance. For in RAID systems, it will be always in parallel.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, so what about the third axis? How will this system perform in terms of reliability compared to a single hard disk system? If one of these hard disks fail, one or more of hard disk fails, will this system be able to work?
Sir, it depends.
No, this what depends on what? The system either works 100% or it doesn't work at all. So what if one of these hard disks fail? Will the system
Yes,
continue to work?
I think it should,
Why?
because they all have different data on it stored, and it depends whether the Windows or operating system installed on which disk. I mean, that's really the crucial disk, and the other is like the disk is used for data only.
Okay, you are thinking in terms of that. No, we are not talking about in
Okay.
terms of whether the operating system is corrupted or not. No.
Uh,
The idea is whether our data is lost or not. Let's say it's the data of a bank. It's like the state bank, which contains all your country's most important data. So if a hard disk fails, will it result in data loss or not? Because if there's data loss, then all that data is gone, and the state bank is like has problems.
It depends if that data has any copy on any other disk. If not, then it will fail. If yes, it has
Very
copies,
good.
then it won't fail.
Very good. So in this system, there are not copies, okay? In this system, we have just spread our data across different hard disks, and we have not made any copies, okay? So you see all these blocks, they are different numbers. So it is different data. So in this RAID implementation, which is the first or very simple RAID implementation, we have used multiple hard disks. We have spread our data in stripes across different hard disks, but we have not made any copies. Okay, so if there is a hard disk failure, can this system resist or overcome a hard disk failure?
No.
No. Okay, good. Because if hard disk fails, then there is no extra copy of this data, so we cannot retrieve this data or restore this data, and therefore, if a hard disk fails, that data is lost forever. Okay, and same was the case with one hard disk. Okay, so in terms of reliability or on that axis of reliability, this system is not better than one hard disk system. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I hope all your friends are also following those, I mean, most of them who never speak. So if you guys have any questions, you can ask them. Here we have implemented a very simple RAID in which instead of using one hard disk in our system, our RAID system will be using 4 hard disks, and we'll spread our data in stripes across these hard disks. So if this is the implementation and we compare it to a single hard disk system on the axis of performance, capacity, and reliability, then as we just discussed, this system is better in terms of capacity because more hard disks, we can store more data on this system. Second, it is also better most of the time on performance axis because if there are we are doing data reads from blocks which are on different hard disks, then we can do all those reads in parallel. Okay, so it's I mean it has more data transfer capacity, so it's better in terms of performance also. But in terms of reliability, this system is no better than a single hard disk because if one of the hard disk fails or gets corrupted, then that data is lost forever. Okay. If anybody has any questions regarding this system, you can ask now. Okay, no question. So moving forward, so this system basically increases our capacity by 4x. The maximum increase in data transfer rate will also be 4x because we can read from 4 hard disks in parallel, and reliability, as we discussed, is not better than a single hard disk. So sometimes they basically lay their stripes like this. Here it was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here we have 0, 1, like here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7. Okay, so this is like if you expect your reads to be more than one block, then it is better to have like a series of blocks on the same disks than those blocks spread over across different disks. Okay? As you guys said, and as you said, that these blocks will be on adjacent sectors on the same hard disk, so it will be easier to read them faster than compared to reading them from different hard disks. Okay, so this is like how many consecutive blocks we store on a single hard disk. It's called chunk size. Okay. So here we have a chunk size of 2 because we are storing 2 consecutive blocks on the same hard disk. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7. Okay, and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. On the upper implementation, we had a chunk size of 1. Okay, because only one block is stored, a consecutive block is stored on one hard disk. Okay. So again, this system is also approximately same as the first implementation. So both of these are RAID 0 level systems where there is no copying of data. Next, we go ahead and so this is an analysis that we have done just right now. And if we move to RAID level 1, okay, so the previous implementation was RAID level 0 and this RAID level 1. In this, we do another extra thing along striping and everything, that we do mirroring. Okay, mirroring, as we discussed in the introduction, is copying of data. Okay, so here we'll be copying our data, and here let's say our implementation of this RAID 1 system would look like this. Okay. So this is 4 disks that are in parallel, and here we have 2 copies of our data. Okay. All the data that is on disk 0 is also copied on disk 1. Similarly, all the data that is copied on disk 2 is also copied on disk 3. Okay. So I think the visual description is quite clear, and it is evident how this system is different from RAID level 0. Okay. So if we have a system like this, do we and if we compare this system to a single system hard disk on those 3 axes of capacity, performance, and reliability, what will be its performance in terms of capacity?
It will be twice.
It will be twice. Okay, so RAID level 0, in we used 4 hard disks, it increased our capacity 4x, 4 times. Okay, but in RAID level 1, we are using the same 4 hard disks, but it increases our capacity only twice. Okay, so the increase in capacity is less compared to RAID level 0. Good. What about performance? Is the performance any better compared to one hard disk, or if you compare it to RAID level 0?
It'll be better than the single hard drive, but it'll be similar to RAID 0 level.
Very good. Very good. It's better than single hard drive because we can do data transfers in parallel from different hard disks, because data is spread over hard disks. So we can have opportunities of transferring from different blocks of data which are on different hard disks in parallel. And the maximum number of transfers that can, increase in transfer capacity compared to one hard disk is that if we do 4 transfers in parallel. Okay, so if there are 4 hard disks, then it is possible, a scenario can arise where we are asked to read from block 0, block 4, block 1, and block 3. Okay, since all these blocks are on different hard disks, so all these reads can be performed in parallel. Okay, so again, the maximum increase in performance can be up to 4 times, 4x. Good. And how about in terms of reliability? Are we any better in this RAID 1 system in terms of reliability compared to single hard disk or compared to RAID level 0? Okay.
Yes,
how are we better? How many failures can our system survive?
One.
Only one? Or is it, under some scenarios, is it possible that it can survive more failures, more hard disk failures?
No, it'll only survive one night.
Okay, so it is guaranteed to survive at least one hard disk failure. Okay, let's say any of these hard disk fails, then let's say disk 2 fails, then the data for disk 2 is lost, but the copy of the data lives on disk 3, so that data is not completely lost. Okay, so the system data is still intact even after the failure of one disk. Okay, but if you are lucky, and if a second disk fails, and if you are lucky, it might be possible that the second disk that fails is not disk 3 but disk 0, disk 1. Okay, so in that case, if you are lucky, our system can also survive the failure of 2 disks. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but we do not usually, when we design our systems, we do not count on luck. Okay, we want to be sure that there are certain guarantees that are provided by our system. So we do not count the luck in our system. So we usually say that this system can survive at least one hard disk failure. Okay, but if you are lucky, it can also survive 2 hard disk failures, but we don't count on luck. Okay, so this is better in terms of reliability compared to RAID 1 because it can at least survive one hard disk failure. Good. So this is RAID level 1, and again we did the analysis.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, you said that performance will be 4 times better in this system.
Maximum 4
But
times.
since we have similar data on 2 disks, so how would it be like 4 times more
Compared to one
than
hard disk.
yeah, no, compared to the RAID 0?
No, it's not better than RAID 0. It's
Okay.
almost as you said, it is similar to
Yes,
RAID 0.
alright.
Okay, because data is copied, but it is possible that we might read different blocks from the same data. For example, we want to read block 0 and block 4. Okay, they are on the same disk. But since we know that this data is copied on 2 disks, so we can read block 0 from here and block 4 from here.
Okay,
So these transfers can be done in parallel. And if we have like a situation where we can do a maximum of 4 transfers in parallel, because there are 4 hard disks, so it is possible to do 4 transfers in parallel. So there might be situations where we want to read different blocks of data and they're all on different hard disks. So we'll be reading 4 blocks in parallel. Okay, so the data transfer would be in the best case scenario 4 times better than single hard disk. Okay, and the same was true for RAID 0. Okay, so this was RAID 1, and the next RAID implementation that we are going to study is RAID 4. So RAID 4 basically uses parity. Do you guys know what a parity is? You must have studied in DLD or some other course.
it's error checking method.
Very good. Error checking and error correcting method. Okay, so one of the simplest methods in which we can detect if our data has been corrupted or not. Okay, and if it has been corrupted, then using some extra information, we can restore that data. Okay, so how the simplest implementation of parity works is that we have a stream of data, we count the number of ones or number of zeros in that stream. Okay, and we have stream of bits, we count the number of one. Let's say we are counting number of ones. So in a parity scheme, we'll count the number of ones in that bit stream, and if the number of, we will basically use 1 bit of parity to store information about those number of ones. So if the number of ones in that bit stream are 0, then if the number of ones in that bit stream are even, then we'll make our parity bit equal to 0. And if the number of ones in that bit stream are odd, then we'll make parity bit equal to 1. Okay, so our parity bit is keeping a record of the one characteristic of number of ones in that bit stream, whether they are even or odd. Okay. So once we have this data and the parity bit, then we can easily detect if one bit of that bit stream is corrupted, then it can be easily detected. Okay, so if one bit is corrupted in that bit stream, it would be either like 1 which was corrupted to 0, or it was 0 which was corrupted to 1. Okay, so in both cases, it will change the number of ones in that bit stream. Okay. So if the number of 1 changes, it will be like increased or decreased by 1. So if it was odd previously, it will become even, and if it was even previously, then it will become odd. Okay. So we can always check the integrity of our stream of bits by comparing the number of ones to the parity bit. If previously the number of ones was even, the parity bit was 0, and if the number of ones change because of corruption of 1 bit, it will become odd. So we can always compare the number of ones. We will see that it is odd, and we compare it to the parity bit. Parity bit is 0, telling us that the number of ones is even. So there will be this discrepancy, which will tell us that our data has been corrupted. Okay, so this way, using parity bits, we can detect data corruption in our bit stream. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this simple implementation of having one parity bit will detect a corruption of 1 bit only. Okay. So if we look at this RAID level 4, here in RAID level 1, what we did was we copied our data completely. Okay, so we made 2 copies of all our data. So how do we detect data corruption in this case? Basically, we compare both the hard disk data on both the hard disk, and we'll see that data are different. So therefore, we'll detect that data is corrupted, and then we'll know which hard disk is has defaulted. So we'll use the correct one for data transfer. But here in the parity scheme, RAID 4 scheme, we have our data, like 4 disks of our data, and we have an extra disk which is for parity. So for every bit in these 4 disks, there will be 1 bit here on the parity disk. Okay. So for every 4 bits in this row, there will be 1 parity bit, keeping the number of ones or number of zeros intact in our whether number of ones or number of, so let's say it's number of ones. So it will keep a record of whether the number of ones in this series of 4 bits is even or odd. Okay. So similarly, we have an extra hard disk. So every 4 bits in this collection of data will have a corresponding parity bit, which will keep track of whether the number of ones in those 4 bits is odd or even. So if we have an implementation like this, what will, yes?
Could you please explain this system again, the RAID 4 with parity?
So we have 4 disks in which we are storing our data striped, just like RAID level 0. But here we have added an extra disk in which we will basically store parity information. Okay. So for 4 disks, there is 1 disk for parity information, which means if there is bit 0 on the first hard disk, bit 0 on the hard disk 1, bit 0 on hard disk 2, bit 0 on hard disk 3, this will be the 4 bits of data. For these 4 bits, we'll have bit 0 here on disk 4, which will store parity information about these 4 bits. Okay. Similarly, for bit 1 in disk 0, bit 1 in disk 1, bit 1 in disk 2, bit 1 in disk 3, we'll have bit 1 on disk 4, which will store parity information about these 4 bits on the 4 hard disks. Similarly, every set of 4 bits on these 4 hard disks would have a respective parity bit on the 4th hard disk.
I get it. Oh.
Okay, so this parity bit is basically storing the information about whether the number of ones in the respective 4 bits are even or odd. Okay, so for all this data combined on the 4 disks from disk 0 to disk 3, from block 0 to block 15, we have the record of whether each set of 4 bits, the number of ones in those set of 4 bits is even or odd, which we have kept here in disk 4. So if there is data corruption on one hard disk, or if one hard disk fails, will we be able to restore the data that was on that hard disk?
No.
Okay, let's do it again. Let's say, I think that, yeah, there's this example. So these are the 4 corresponding bits, okay, on 4 hard disk, and this is the parity bit for that this set of 4 bits, and these are another set of 4 bits, and this is the parity bit for this second set of 4 bits. Okay, so this is telling us the number of ones is even, so parity bit is 0, and here in the second row number of ones is odd, so parity bit is 1. So let's say one hard disk fails. Let's say which one will fail? Let's say disk 1 fails. This one fails, and in this set of 4 bits, which bit will we lose? Remember, these 4 bits, like set of 4 bits, there is 1 bit from every hard disk. So if disk 1 fails, which bit will we lose?
So which one fails? Could you please tell us?
Disk 1. Disk 1.
This one. C1 would change.
C1 would lose. We'll completely lose
Yes.
C1. Okay,
Yes.
so C1 is lost. So the other hard disks are intact. So C0, C2, C3, and parity bit are with us. So can we restore C1 bit from the information that is left with us?
Yes.
How?
Since we have even parity, we would just assume that C1 would be 0, since we already have even number of ones.
Exactly. So if parity is 0, that means the number of ones in this set of 4 bits was even. Okay. So bit C1 is lost. So we'll count the number of ones in the rest of the bits. If the number of ones in the rest of bit is even, then C1 was necessarily 0. Okay. If the number of ones in the rest of the bit is odd, then it means we lost 1 1, because it was even previously and now it has become odd. It means there was 1 1 that we have lost. Okay. So C1 in that case must be 1. Okay, so this way, having 1 parity bit, we can afford the loss of 1 bit, and we will be able to restore that 1 bit from the information that was left to us, or that which we had available. Okay. Similarly, if this bit was also lost, we can restore it by looking at this bit. Okay. This bit is telling us, parity bit is telling us that the number of ones in this sequence was odd. Okay. And since C1 is lost, and we see that the number of ones in this sequence of 3 bits that are left is 0, 0 is even. So necessarily or forcefully, the bit that we have lost must be 1. Okay, so then we can restore C1 based on this parity bit. Okay, so is it clear how we can restore this information if one hard disk is lost?
Yes.
Good. So let's say this is our implementation RAID level 4. So we have 4 hard disks that are specifying the, 4 hard disks for storing data and 1 hard disk for specifying the parity of this data. So let's compare this system with others on the axis of capacity, performance, and reliability. So what about in terms of capacity? Because previously, if you, okay, let's in terms of comparing it to 1x, let us say, let's compare it, I think a better measure would be whether the 100% of our capacity is being used to store user data or not. Here we can say again for RAID 0, yes, for RAID 0, are we using 100% of our capacity to store useful data?
Yes.
Yes. In RAID 1, are we using 100% our capacity to store useful data?
No.
No, because 50% is just copy and only 50% capacity is being used to store useful data. Okay. What about RAID 4? What percentage of our capacity are we using to store useful data?
%80 over.
Yes, 80%. Because useful data is only data that is required by the user. Okay. This parity information, it is not required by the user. It is just stored internally by the RAID system to protect against data loss. Okay. It is not useful to data to user directly. The user is only interested in this data which they have stored. So since 4 out of 5 disks are used to store user data, then we can say that 80% of the disk capacity is being used to store user data compared to RAID 1, where we were only using 50% of the capacity to store useful user data. Okay. So let's compare this system to other previous systems in terms of capacity, performance, and reliability. So capacity, we already said that RAID 0 uses 100% of its capacity to store useful user data. RAID 1 uses 50% of its capacity to store useful user data. RAID level 4 uses 80% of its capacity to store useful user data. So capacity we've already compared. How about performance? How does it come? Yes, go ahead.
It will be similar.
Very good. It will be similar. Okay, it will be maximum of 4 times better compared to single hard disk and similar to what do we say?
RAID 1.
RAID 1 and RAID 0. Okay, good. What about reliability? How many disk failures can we, can we sustain in this system?
I think in this system we can only sustain 1.
We can only sustain 1. And does it matter whether disk 0 fails, disk 3 fails, or disk 4 fails? Will we be able to restore disk 4 if it fails?
I mean, we can.
Yes, we can. And what about any of the other disks? If any of the other disks fail, will be able to restore if only one disk fails?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So it doesn't matter which disk fails. We can, as long as only one disk fails, we can always recover its data. Okay. So so in terms of reliability, let's compare it to RAID level 1. RAID level 1 can survive at least one disk failure. This RAID level 4 can also survive at least one disk failure. But in RAID level 2, we had said that it is possible that if we are lucky, we might survive 2 disk failures. Is it possible in RAID level 4 to get lucky?
No, I don't think so.
No, no. Here at the price of increased capacity, because RAID level 2 uses only 50% of the capacity. Here we have increased our capacity. We are using 80% of our capacity to store useful data. So we have increased our capacity, but at the expense of this increased capacity, we have let go of that lucky factor. Okay, so here we cannot, we will never survive the failure of more than one disks. Okay. In RAID level 2, we have less capacity, but it is possible that we are lucky and we might survive the failure of 2 disks. So this is like a trade-off between capacity and reliability. So this is disk 4, and the third level, or this is parity, restore. Okay. So the next level that we are going to study is RAID level 5. Okay. So RAID level 5 basically spreads the parity over different disks, which is good because RAID level 4 had the parity bits on the same hard disk. Okay. That created a bottleneck. What can be the bottleneck? What can you guess? What was the bottleneck on RAID level 4? Because in this system, whenever we read some data, we will have to verify the integrity of the data. Can you guess what can be the benefit of spreading out this parity across all disks instead of having it on a single disk?
It increases capacity.
No, capacity is the same. For example, here we had like out of these, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 25 blocks in total, and 5 blocks are used for parity here. Okay, so the same was the case for RAID level 4. So we are using 80% of the capacity for useful data here, and also we were using 80% of the capacity for useful data in RAID 4. So the advantage here mainly is in terms of performance. Okay? So if we are, let's say, here, level 4. If, let's say, we need to verify the integrity of data and we need to read different blocks. So for that, we need to read the blocks of data as well as their parity. Okay? So if we want to perform different reads in parallel, then the thing is we can read data in parallel, but we can't read parity bits in parallel because parity is stored only one disk, and only one disk we can read from only one place. Okay, so parity cannot be read in parallel in this scheme. Okay. Here, if we spread out the parity across different disks, then it is possible to have different data requests, and their parities, they can be read in parallel. Okay, because parity is also on different disks, so we can have parities being read in parallel. Okay, so the advantage of this spreading out parity is not in terms of capacity and also not in terms of reliability, but in terms of performance compared to RAID 4, because we can read parities in parallel. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that was all for this chapter. So this is like very simple implementation of parity in which we can detect the restore the failure of only one disk, but there are many complex schemes in which we can store more complicated information about the data, just not about even odd, but more complicated information about the data, and those schemes can even sustain or recover from more disk failures compared to this one disk failure that we have here in RAID 4 and 5. Okay. So any questions regarding what is a RAID, what is it useful for, and how we can implement the different levels of RAID, and what are the, how does each implementation performs on those three axes of capacity, performance, and reliability. No questions?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'll stop the recording here, and tomorrow we have again a class at 12 noon, and we'll have a quiz at the start of that class, and it will be same like MCQ based quiz, 1 minute per question. And if you guys have no more questions, then I'll stop the recording here, and you can mark your attendance in the chat.